Okay, so this lesson is about competition in animals. So basically different species compete to survive and breed and pass on their genes. So ultimately, habitats have a limited amount of resources needed by living organisms in order to survive. So because there's limited resources, these organisms must compete in order to get enough resources to survive. If they're not successful at competing, then unfortunately they will die. So competition in animals, some of the types of resources that animals will compete for are food, water, space, and also for mates in order to pass on their genes so that they can reproduce and keep the species going. So herbivores, what makes a good herbivore is one that has quite a varied diet, so therefore it can eat quite a wide range of different plants. If the herbivore is a picky eater that only has like one or two types of foods that it can eat, it actually risks dying out, because if that food source becomes limited, then they're a bit scuppered really. Carnivores, what makes a good carnivore is one that has very good eyesight, has good hearing, has very fast at running, maybe could have sharp claws, so things that makes it really successful to catch that prey. So many different types of animals hunt the same mice, so those that are best adapted would be more likely to survive. So those that have sharper eyes to detect the mice running, those that can run faster to get the mice, that have sharper claws, etc. That will mean that they are better at competing for their food source, for the prey. What makes a good prey is one that is not going to be detected very easily. So things like camouflage to its surroundings so that it can't be spotted. Good hearing, so they can hear a predator that might be skulking, trying to pounce on it. One that's very vigilant, that'll keep an eye out to make sure that there are no predators around. So there's these things called predator-prey cycles, and basically what it means is that if one of them increases, the other will decrease. So if you look at the red line here, the red line is the Canadian lynx, the green line is the snowshoe hare. So you've got the lynx is the red line, the green line is the hare, and obviously the lynx eats the hare. So at the beginning, the lynx, the predator, is increasing. And because there's more predators, that means they're eating more prey. So if they're eating more prey, the prey numbers, the hare numbers are going to decline. But then as a knock-on effect, because the prey numbers have declined, there's actually less food for the predator to eat. So therefore, with a bit of a time lag, the predator numbers fall because there's less food. Now as the predator numbers fall, that means less prey are being eaten, less hare are being eaten. Therefore, if there's less of them being eaten, they're more likely to be able to survive. So therefore the prey numbers will increase because they've got less things eating it. And as the prey numbers increase, that means that there's more food for the predators. So the predators, after a little bit of a delay, will also increase, and so on. So the cycle just keeps on kind of fluctuating up and down depending on whether there's more food or less food for the predators. Another thing that animals compete for is mates. So some things like deer have antlers which are quite sharp, and they will fight with these. They fight for the female. Some of them will have very elaborate displays. So the peacock has a very colourful plumage. And there's also an example of this is a superb bird of paradise, which is this one shown here, which gives a very elaborate dance going from left to right and clicking its tail together to make a noise to impress the female. So a successful competitor is something that is better adapted to finding food or a mate than other members of its species. Many animals are successful because they avoid competition with other species. They find a specific niche, or they have their own territory, which means that they don't have to compete. So yeah, many birds set up territories to avoid competition, make sure they have enough food for themselves and also for the young that they bring up. So as a case study, we're going to look at the red and the grey squirrel. So the red squirrel is native to the UK. The grey squirrel is native to America. And the red squirrels have actually declined in recent years because two reasons. One is that the grey squirrel is more aggressive, so it's better at competing for the food. But the second one is that the grey squirrel has a more varied diet. So essentially the red squirrel is quite a picky eater, which means that if its food source decreases, it doesn't have anything else to eat, whereas the grey squirrel can eat quite a lot of varied food sources. So the red squirrel, native species to the British Isles, it lives in coniferous and broadleaf woodlands. Their numbers have declined in the last sort of 50 years. There are still quite a lot of small populations in Wales, the Isle of Wight, etc. Still quite widespread in Scotland. But the reason that the red squirrel numbers have declined is because of mainly because of the grey squirrel, which has been introduced, and it's more aggressive than the red squirrel and also has a more varied diet, so it's actually better at competing. So just some worked examples. Competition is a struggle between organisms for resources. Animals compete for food, water and territory. We say mates as well. Plants compete for food, water, something and space. It's got to be light for photosynthesis. Competition is a driving force behind evolution. Individuals and species that are less competitive are at risk of becoming extinct. The more similar to species, the more they will compete. Okay, next one. Grey squirrels far outnumber the red squirrels in the UK. Why is this? So is it A, red squirrels can live to an older age, B, red squirrels are eaten by grey squirrels, or C, grey squirrels are eat a more varied diet? It's definitely C. Grey squirrels eat a more varied diet. Question 2. Why don't you find many plants growing underneath large trees? Is it A, animals eat the plants, B, there isn't enough light, and C, there's too much oxygen? It's going to be that there isn't enough light because the large trees are going to block the sunlight to the plants underneath. So in a summary, animals compete for food, water, shelter and mates.